Hello, Ben. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. You?
Yeah, very good. Have you had a good week?
It's been an interesting month or so, actually. Certainly noticed the last 3 or 4 weeks, the inquiries, the workload has picked up fantastically, despite all the doom and gloom in the world and the press at the moment.
Out of interest, do you find that there are, over the course of the year, ups and downs in terms of when the inquiries come through? Because I've tended to find it gets quite busy just before Christmas and just after the summer holidays.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially with our line of work, the B2B side of things, late August, early September, I think people are rested and they kind of think, I've got to get on with it.
Yeah.
Comes towards the end of the year and people are thinking, you know what, I haven't finished this. I've got to get it done by the end of the year. We then see a massive peak in January. Sometimes, the second or third, we can have more inquiries in those few days than we have in the whole of the month. And normally around financial year, that's changed a little bit now, but it used to be when we did a lot of public sector work, kind of end of March.
Absolutely, yeah, because they need to get all the budgets signed off and everything sort of paid for before. Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly. August, September, January. There's two kind of main peaks. We always work off. We used to do print, and with print, it was kind of like you didn't know what you were doing for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
But with web, there was always this 3-month cycle. Every 3 months, you'd have a big build of inquiries, and it would dip back off again. But that works well as it goes through the process. Then.
Yeah, and it's quite a tricky thing to get building a nice drip of inquiries. But ultimately, that's something that I prefer to have. Nice steady work rather than these peaks and troughs, that you typically get from a lot of agency work. I don't know if you listen to the podcast Boag World at all. You heard of that?
No.
It's a long running podcast and I dip in and out of it occasionally, but they often talk about this 3-month wall out in the future where they just don't have any work after that point. They always get work, but they look ahead and there's this 3-month wall where everything drops off a cliff. Luckily, we've not really had that. Our work tends to sort of go up and down really quite smoothly, but I would hate that, as I'm quite a bit of a control freak. So having this thing ahead where you can't predict.
Yeah. From the web development side of things, most definitely you've got that. You don't really know what's going on in 3 months' time. But that we've built in then, the residuals, the digital marketing side of things as well, and to try and even that out on a monthly basis.
Well, we should jump back. We've jumped straight into a conversation. We should just find out. Tell me a little bit more about who you are, your company, how you help your people.
Yeah. So I'm Ben, and I own a company called Copper Bay. We've been going for about 11 years now. My background is in software development. I started off as a web designer, freelancer. Basically, over the years, we've built a good reputation for building the complicated stuff. Not your run-of-the-mill plumbers, hairdressers, brochure websites, but it tends to be websites that need to integrate with other systems, more kind of strategic things. We're building one at the moment, which is a white labeling system, and that integrates with internal stock control and talks to a third-party system as well. So it's that more kind of complicated side of web development we really focused on. Mobile apps, web apps. We build a lot of systems where we're trying to get people away from pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, that kind of stuff, or they're using kind of like 20 different off the shelf.
That's right. And so you're either trying to tie them together or pull that together for them.
Yeah, quite heavily focused on systems and processes and the complicated side of things.
I mean, because we moved away from that over the course of 10 years that we've been doing this. We used to do a lot more bespoke programming or heavier websites, tying into lots of things. We've actually pulled away from that over the years and focused maybe more on marketing sites and more design led or maybe something where you're funneling people down and providing information. What's led you into the more technical side of things?
With the opposite. I think it's my background. I started off as a freelance developer, building the cheap brochure websites and things. We then moved into more of the full service side of things. We were doing design, print, digital marketing, brochure websites, the bespoke stuff. It got very, very broad. And I think I then sat down and thought, well, you know what, I need to try and refine this a little bit. Otherwise, we'll be a bit of a jack of all trades. And I know a lot of people went down the route of actually, like we were saying earlier, with the income forecasting and that side of things, is that a lot of people think, well, actually that project work, yes, you get big projects, you don't know when the next one's coming in. With the marketing side of things and that, you get the retained work and the more even cash flow. And it was a kind of a flip of the coin, which way do we go? But I think because my background's in software and we've got quite a good reputation, some very long-standing clients in that, decided to focus focus on that. And we also get a lot of people coming to us that have gone to Upwork and channels like that and used an overseas developer.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, they want to sit down round a table, talk face to face, and go back to basics when it comes to designing a bespoke website or a software system.
Yeah, and that is incredibly valuable for a lot of people. I tend to work with probably smaller businesses than you would. There are some people who value that, where they can sit either in front of someone or have regular contact, or even maybe face to face like this over Zoom or Skype, and just having fewer barriers in between that communication is so much easier. Nothing to do with skill level. Skills all around the world are exceptional, but it's just being able to have that quick contact where you can communicate very quickly about an idea, and it's so valuable, which is great, and it's nice to be able to offer.
I think the likes of Zoom, especially in the last few years, has made a massive difference. 5 years ago, you were saying, let's organise a Skype call, and people were like, oh, hang on a sec, I've got to install it, set it up. It was hard work to organise it. But now, we use Google Apps, we've got Zoom, it's all plugged in. We use Calendly as well. It's a couple of clicks, it's in there, people are ready to go, especially with the phones and stuff. People are on the app on their phone, and you can have a meeting really, really easily. The language barrier and being able to speak face to face with someone, share a screen, and that, helps massively when it comes to
the sharing screen has been key for me. I often find that because we have a mix of face-to-face with our clients, so maybe every 3 months it's face-to-face, and then for the rest of the two it's a conference call like this. But I found that we can be much more productive in a call because I can start bringing things up and doing some of the work or mocking up, sketching out ideas or looking at spreadsheets because I've got a big screen. I can share that big screen with them. Doing that at their premises with different varying computer technologies that they may have, feeds, you just don't know where you are. Whereas having that consistency is actually, I find, them much faster and much more helpful to them when we're working remotely than in person. I love that in-person contact. There's just something that you can't get through this method.
No.
Tell me about maybe pick an interesting project that we've worked on recently, and just talk about a few of the challenges that you had with that.
We're working on one at the moment, actually. In fact, it started with a client. We were working with them on, I suppose, digital consultancy, really. They were using another web company. They were about to open up a second venue, do some big changes, which would have massive knock-on effects, potentially with Google and SEO and things. So we were working with them really on a basis of saying, well, okay, let's plan this and minimize the impact. And we were then consulting with their web company. After that project, the new website went live and everything. Now opening a third venue, slightly different industry. So they're going to have a completely separate website for this. So they've come to us to talk about it. But it's highlighted something which we mentioned earlier on, which is the ownership of a website. Because he's come along and he said, well, right, I don't really want to use that previous web company because the communication, the project management, a common one with web developers isn't it, is the personality types. It's very much, well, that's how the website works, and there's not that kind of orientation and understanding of how the business works and how you need to get everything talking together. So we're building the website for this new venue for him. And he's come along and said, great, let's transfer over the old website to you so everything's in one place and off we go. And it's hit a brick wall because the website that they have got, although he paid for and he thought he was buying his own bespoke website with a CMS, it was built on an internal CMS system. So this web company have got their own CMS they've developed over the years, very much like WordPress, but their own brand one. But the website has to work with it and they can't release that. So he can't move the website. So what we're doing now is going through and saying, well, right, what if we were to move a static version of the website? So you haven't got the ability to edit it behind the scenes. It's just, a website that you would have had 20 years ago, plain HTML and not editable. So then we're talking now about, okay, well, what if we were to plug in a simple editor just so they could keep the news and events up to date? And then eventually, plug WordPress into it because then it becomes his own entity and it becomes his ownership. And if he does want to move on from us in a few years' time or things change, he can do. It's portable, and I think that's the right thing to do with websites. But it's unfortunately quite a common one for us to deal with, where we work with companies that can't move away from their existing supplier without starting from scratch again. So with us, it's that problem-solving element of, right, well, how can we work around this? What can we do to solve the situation?
It's funny you mention that because that's a video I picked up on when I was just doing a bit of research before our call. I mean, you produce a lot of videos on your channel, but this one specifically stuck out to me because it was the title was, "Do you fully own your website, mobile app and bespoke software?" I seem to remember you might mention that little story in this. It's incredibly important. I was working with someone recently and they just wanted to produce a small site and they wanted to know, well, can they pull it away from the company and sort of we'll host it temporarily while they're doing it? Similar situation to you. but they couldn't, even though it was WordPress. I assume they were using a multi-network install, because I was saying, well, if we can just get admin access, we're able to sort of pull it off and migrate it over, no problem. But we obviously can't. They couldn't do that. They could to a certain degree, and this is where I'm not sure. Certainly with something like WordPress, it is an open source platform. They may well have developed certain things, but there should be no reason why we can't pull the content out and get an XML export from WordPress, and then we can import that into the new site, and then it will pull all the images across. I mean, that is part of how WordPress works, but they weren't open to that. It was like, well, once you stop paying, that's it.
Yeah, it's that relationship's like, oh, I don't want to deal with you anymore.
Yeah.
We've seen that a lot. It goes the other way too. We'll host your current website for the time being while we develop a new one, because that's what they want to do. But clients worry that their existing company will throw the toys out the pram and turn off their hosting and things. And we say, right, well, what we'll do is we'll pick up and we'll host the website for you in the interim. And then these projects, sometimes they go along speedily, and sometimes the client thinks, oh my god, what have I let myself in for? And you end up hosting this thing for nine months or something. Yeah, it tends to be the company kind of says, I don't want to deal with this anymore. You're not paying me. You're not my client.
I can understand that, but I'd rather graciously let go of a client than cause a problem. Obviously, if there's any bills outstanding, that might be an issue. But if it's really a month by month payment, why not help them on their way? If they're going to go, by the time they've already said they're going to go, help them leave quickly, smoothly. They'll remember it. There's no point making us think about it. I don't know if you how you manage with static sites, but we use quite a good tool called SiteSucker.
Okay.
If you've got a problem where you just simply cannot transfer that site, but it's still publicly available. It's a Mac app. I don't know if it's available on PC, but you can put the site address into SiteSucker, and it will visit every single page within that website and download everything that your browser would normally see, creating a static website which is fully portable. It's actually really useful if you're upgrading a new site, because you can take a copy of the old site for full reference that will run anywhere without an internet connection. But we have used it once or twice for those instances where we just couldn't get access, and they needed to move it quite quickly. Even though they couldn't edit it didn't matter, because the turnaround for getting the new website live was short enough that it wasn't going to be significant.
We've used one. It's quite an older tool, but it works. I think it's HT Track or something like that, which is a Windows one. But it's exactly that. It's grab that, have a local static copy of it. The client can update it, which is a norm these days, really. But as you say, if it's for an interim thing, then
it's even useful sometimes, even with your own website, if you're developing your own website in-house or alongside an agency, just to take a regular snapshot of how the website's developing, because it's nice to look back on things. Actually having a copy of the website every so often can be quite useful, because you don't realize how much websites can change over time when they're quite fluid.
Quite agree.
Maybe that leads us on nicely to talk about the current state of websites. And this is how I sort of wanted to bring you in on the podcast, really, because both being sort of involved in websites, but from different angles, you're probably a much more technical side. I'm intrigued by how people perceive websites nowadays, because a lot of people I speak to, maybe their first foray onto the web in terms of promotion is via something like Facebook or an Instagram page or Twitter. If you're lucky, certainly younger people, they're going to go straight onto Instagram. And that is their presence. That is where they want to drive people towards. That is where they're doing putting all of their energy. In some cases, with Facebook, you can have your product list and people can buy online there. So it's actually taking over some of those things that would naturally fall to a website. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the role of websites in the way businesses work nowadays.
I think it's very much depending on the size of the business and who the target audience is. Yeah, I mean, I do feel very strongly that a website should always be the core of your marketing activities, because it comes back to this ownership thing that you should be. But if you go to the right suppliers, you've got the right team around you, you own your website, you're in control of that. However, yesterday morning I was at a breakfast networking thing, and I hadn't been for a long time, but I was chatting to one of the roofers there, and he was like, I don't bother with my website anymore. He just puts stuff on Facebook, his friends recommend him, that's where all of his business comes from. It's the modern word of mouth, isn't it? It's people asking for recommendations on Facebook, tagging a friend, and then you can message them directly. And I think that is a massive, massive shift away from websites for certain industries and certain sizes of business. Over the years, then that changed so that you would jump onto Google or go onto Yelp. But social media's kind of come over that now, I think, and certainly for those kind of businesses, social media is a stronger position than a website. And a lot of it comes down to content, I think, because the hardest part, you'll know, of a launching a website is getting the content together,
Yeah.
and saying,
or wrangling the client to get the content together.
saying, what, we do need a picture of you and that roof that you've repaired. I'm a roofer, and here's a picture of my van is not enough for a 5-page website. People, if on a website, people want to see case studies, examples, testimonials, lots of pictures. I mean, this guy yesterday was doing his 10-minute BNI presentation, and he brought with him like 500 photos for a 5-minute slot, and he got through about 80 of them. Interestingly, just looking at his photos made me think, oh, you know what, my roof is actually coming to end of life. I could see from the photos he'd taken how good a job he'd done, and I thought, I'll give him a shout. I've seen the work, and actually it's that visual medium that, if you go to a website, then there's not going to be enough good quality content on there. But on Facebook, Instagram, platforms like that, they can just upload pictures from their phone. It's much faster, it's much easier. We're used to that.
You're absolutely right. It comes down to that content management. And that's one of the reasons I've had from people, because we do a lot of just general consulting. I work with Fastershire in Herefordshire and Gloucestershire, the Fastershire sort of scheme to provide free support for businesses. And a lot of what I hear is that it's just easy. As you say, you can do it from your phone, you can take a photo and post it there and then. You don't have to go and your big computer and log in or try and find the details for it, because it's in a medium that you're already in, maybe personally. It's just one step to the business side. And for our local kickboxing group, they have a website, sure. And that's actually how I found them first, because maybe being of a slightly older generation, I'm sort of one of those people who are in between, that's where I look first on Google. But actually it's their Facebook presence where all the photos from every single session get put up, all the silly videos that they make, all the conversation, that's where it all happens. And certainly does work very well for a local organization or business.
Take that kickboxing example. I think once you're part of it, you would follow the Facebook page and you would be engaged. But that initial one, are you going to go onto Google and go kickboxing clubs near me? Therefore, kind of going from there to a website or to a directory listing. But then once you're on board with them, then social media takes over. I think we're going to see more and more of the social media for local marketing.
And what about the relationship between the two? And I'll give you an example, maybe to set the scene. We work with an architect in Hereford. They've got a lovely website, lots of beautiful images, portfolio of their work, lots of detail there, gives you all the information about how you might work with them. But on social media, they have been posting a lot of on-site work behind the scenes. So here is some concrete being poured. Here's the scaffolding going up. Here's something we discovered on the build. All those sorts of things. The things you don't normally get to see when a building's happening, which they're taking anyway as a sort of an archive for the client, but also for themselves. But what they've started to do is actually they're building such a valuable amount of imagery there, but it's just stuck on Twitter or it's just stuck on Facebook. They're now bringing it back onto the website to form on one page like a gallery, an on-site gallery. So as they update photos, it's much more masonry board Pinterest style, where the photos will show up there. Because still a lot of people want to use the website. When they're referring to people, they'd rather take them to their own property rather than send them off to Twitter and sort of navigate. And also things get lost on the timeline. They just sort of disappear.
Isn't it something like, if you open up the Facebook app on your phone, it's something ridiculous like 1,500 or 1,800 things that Facebook could show you in that split second. And it's got to show you 10 things to get you to start scrolling through to 20, 30, 40. There is so much content on there that doesn't get seen, and there's also this danger that you're not in complete control. We don't know what Facebook and Google and people are going to be doing in the future. You're posting that stuff onto somebody else's platform. If they then say, actually, we're going to charge businesses £50 a month, you're trapped. You have to go along with it and have to do it if you're reliant on that.
Yeah,
exactly. Why I come back to the websites and stuff and saying, actually, put the content out on social media. But if you grab that content and you put it on your website, you're in control. If the hosting company vanished or your web company held you to ransom and stuff, there are technicalities around that we mentioned earlier. But at the end of the day, it's still your entity. You should be able to pick it up and say to somebody else, right, you host my website. A small little glitch, but you're moving again. Facebook turned around and said, well, actually, business pages have got very poor visibility anyway these days, unless you're getting engagement. And you're going to get engagement by having those kind of behind the scenes pictures. We work with a lot of property estate agents, and it's saying to them, no one really wants to see the picture of a 3-bed semi, going up. They want to see the view out the back of the house or the garden or the amazing bedroom or the stunning bathroom or the you want to see the detail. You want the stuff that's engaging, not just the run of the mill.
They would have these lovely videos as well. I think they even did drone footage in the house. So they'd fly the drone around from room to room. But one of the most interesting things, I think they were called Free Agent 247. I can't remember. We actually had them on the podcast a while back. One of the most interesting things they do is they would talk about how you might live in the property as well. So if you were commuting, so they might do a video on where you might commute to the train station and what coffee shops you might pass and restaurants and things like that, and what's in the area. And so it's much more about the lifestyle of you being there, living there, than just a functional features list of the house. And I really like that. They weren't just saying this is a house and technically listing out everything. They were describing what it's like to be in here, which you often might get from an estate agent in person, but that's just one-to-one. You know, what was great about this, it was a video. They were either talking piece to camera like this, or they were having a narrated slideshow. And I just thought that added a lot more personality to what they were doing.
Very much.
I want to talk more about this sort of ownership of social media, but before we do, I want to go to just a very short sponsor. This episode is sponsored by 34sp.com. They offer fast, secure and managed WordPress hosting for the low price of $9.95 a month. One of the reasons I move most of our clients over to 34sp is that they take care of website updates. Now, WordPress is one of the biggest website platforms out there, and because of that, it's a large target for malicious attacks. So keeping WordPress and your plugins up to date is the best way of protecting your site and your data. Not only do 34sp manage the WordPress core updates, so you're on the most secure and stable release, but they also update your plugins for you. And if you're a control freak like me, you can delay those updates for up to 7 days, and this allows you to do any testing. And it gives me certainly the peace of mind that all our client sites are up to date. 34sp also offer incredibly fast server and page caching, a free SSL certificate with Let's Encrypt, a free website migration service, which I make full use of, a daily backup and site snapshots, a staging area to spin up a copy of a website to make tests safely, no restrictions on bandwidth, a simple control panel, and great UK-based support even on the weekend. So visit 34sp to upgrade your WordPress hosting, and when you do, use the code WPInventive at checkout. That's WPInventive, all one word, to get your first 3 months completely free. So actually, I want to come back to you fully on your website. And we were talking about how social media can be quite useful for local companies and how that actually is their online presence. It can be a real problem in terms of owning that, though. And I'll just bring up an example that I heard about recently. It was an Instagrammer called Jessie Taylor. I won't pull up the website because there's a couple of sort of risque images of her on there. But the idea behind it was that her account had been pulled because it violated some of Instagram's policy. I can't remember how long she'd been Instagramming for, but it's a long time. She built up a lot of credibility. She had a lot of weight in her audience. And so they pulled her account because they felt she stepped over a line. I'm not sure exactly what that line was. As far as she says, there was nothing illegal that she'd done. She's nothing against the policy. It's just that one of their administrators decided it was stepping over the line. The problem was she had no recourse against that. So there was no appeal process. They just took her account down immediately. And she had no way of getting it back. It's gone. It's been deleted. Obviously, if you had a website and you had something that crossed the line on there, you know what those lines are because you can go and look at law and find out what the lines are. You can go through an appeal process. You know who to talk to. It's also your content. So if your host wanted to take your website down, they have to go through a bit of a process in terms of warning you've got maybe copywritten content on there or it violates certain laws. So there's going to be a period of time where you can work that out. I think this is quite an important thing that people don't think about when they are reliant on their social platform of choice. Anyway, I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, well, I think Google and Facebook being the two big boys, and obviously, Facebook's behind Instagram as well. We don't know. Their policies are very, very much, I suppose, in the hands of the gods. We were doing a Facebook campaign for a client a couple of years ago now, and this is a paid Facebook campaign. So we'd put all the ads up and everything, and it was all running. And then all of a sudden, it was for a franchise business. Nothing sinister. It was for a gardening franchise. And all of a sudden, the ads would be running, the leads would be coming in, and then gone. The ads would be blocked. And you go in there and it would say ad disabled for policy violation. So we'd go through their appeals process, and you can't talk to anybody. You fill in the form and you send it off to them. They go, yeah, no worries, we've checked that. Ads are back up and running again. 2 or 3 days later, and then gone. And a computer behind the scenes, an algorithm behind the scenes, has just gone and picked up on something that it doesn't like, put 2 and 2 together and made 8, and said, policy violation, you're stopped. And that was a really frustrating one, because the ads were bringing us some fantastic leads. It was just constantly up and down, up and down, up and down. But we're in the hands of the gods. It's like Google search. The Google ads are getting more and more expensive to run now. The cost of pay-per-click or pay-per-impression, paid advertising with Facebook and Google is going up and up, because they've got a captive audience. There's nothing we can do about it. Can't guarantee a position on Google. You can obviously make improvements to improve your visibility on Google, but at the end of the day, they do an algorithm change, you're gone.
Yeah.
A guy that had a multi-million-pound betting tips business down in Exeter, I think he was, and all of his traffic was coming through from Google. And then they did their update in 2012, I think it was a 2012 update. Overnight, the website vanished, completely vanished off Google. It had gone from £1 million turnover to nothing he could do about it. No one he could talk to, nothing he could do to recover it. Over the next 6 months, changed and switched to Facebook advertising and rebuilt the business and went down that route. He's back up and running again now. But perfect example where Facebook, Google, whether it's social media or search, we are completely reliant on them, and it's a dangerous situation. AdWords, if you want to be found, you've got to pay, but it's getting more expensive. They do have that free offering. Facebook these days, business pages get very, very little visibility.
Yeah, you've got to pay. You've got to pay somehow, or you've got to really encourage a lot of engagement to get noticed.
That comes back to just good quality content and generating interesting content. But we're very, very much, as a business, you're very much reliant on them. I think it's important to have all these multiple channels, because I suppose one thing that comes across what we've been saying is the multiple touch points. That you very rarely do people these days, because of the digital world, because they can do research. Very rarely do people kind of go, oh, I need a roofer. Oh, there's their phone number on Google, ring them, done, they've got the job. It's a case of actually we can go onto Google and look somebody up. We can go onto Rated People or onto Yale and look them up. You can go onto their social media and do some digging around. You can go onto YouTube and see if they're doing any videos, and go onto Spotify and see if there's a podcast from them. And you get all these multiple touch points to get to know the people behind the business. It's that whole know, like, trust.
Yes.
I think it's important to have all of these touch points, but knowing actually which ones your core are that you're in control of, and not relying on anybody externally too heavily. As we say, Facebook is very important. So is Google, so is your own website. I would worry if I spoke to a business and they said, oh, we've just got our Facebook page and that's the only thing we do, because I think it's all your eggs in one basket. And with the likes of Facebook and Google, you just don't know what they're going to do next and how things are going to change.
If you think about the idea of having the multiple touch points, as you said, before we started recording, we were talking about why we do these videos. I was asking you about the videos that you produce on your channel. And it is, for me, multiple touch points. It's the fact that people can get to know you on the video. They can see some of the work you've done on the website. They may even follow you on social media, so they get an idea for what you're interested in and what you understand and what you're sharing. And so through those different media, that they can really understand whether they want to work with you if they are moving that direction, or B, you can start highlighting those sort of issues that you might be able to help them with it when they're ready. Just coming back to the AdWords, I found an interesting tweet came up from Jason Fried, who developed a Basecamp, which is project management software that we use. Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen are usually quite vocal on things on Twitter. They're not afraid to sort of stick their oar in and sort of wiggle it about and berate companies or people who they think are doing the wrong thing. They're not always doing necessarily the right thing themselves, but they do certainly have a higher level than most companies. But I'll just share his tweet that I saw that came through. Basecamp are venturing into a bit more marketing. They haven't tended to do much marketing in the past. They've tended to rely more on word of mouth, to be honest, and they're quite a big company for it. But they were going more into marketing, and they were doing more organic optimization. And they found that even though if people put in just their brand term, Basecamp, into Google, that there would be 5 ads above them. So there would be other competitors buying their, and it is a trademark term, getting ads above their organic listing. And they might be doing things like Workflow versus Basecamp. We compare the two, or something like that. And that pissed him off, frankly, because he said, it's our term, we've trademarked it. And he understands that people compete for sort of generic keywords and things like that, where the other companies just don't feel confident about their own product. They have to go and stand in front of this other product. He had this tweet, which I'll share in the show notes. But then I also heard him on, I think it was the Vergecast. Let me try and find it here. They've got a podcast called Rework. And he talks about what he calls the Google ad shakedown, where basically Google are the only player in town for organic search. So if you want to be found, yes, you can try your luck by getting organic, but even if you're at the top, the ads will still be above that. And you really need to pay if you want to be found. And he likens it to people standing in front of your shop. So you're a pie maker and you've got your pie maker competitor over the road, and they get their employees to come and stand in front of your shop saying, oh, we do better pies than these guys, or that sort of thing. And he said, you just wouldn't do that in real life. That's not going to happen. The police are going to get called. You're causing disruption. It's really bad behavior, if nothing else. Online, this happens all the time. So it's definitely worth listening to that interview with him. Gives an insight into Google. But you were saying there's nothing we can do. I think what we can do is, if we don't like something like this, we can either stand up and voice it, make sure that they know about it, build a momentum, maybe jump on board Jason Fried here and sort of amplify what he's saying, because I can see why Google are doing it. They're going to make more money if they put these ads at the top. Definitely understand it from their point of view, but from a point of view of good business, maybe it's not the right way forward. I certainly think if we have issues with things, we should certainly stand up for what's right where we can, or find someone else who's doing that and support them.
It's a trade-off, isn't it? I suppose this digital world that we, they give us stuff for free. I suppose the unwritten rule is that while we're having this stuff for free, we're giving you our data and we're allowing you to track us. Yeah. That's the currency that we're using. But I mean, Google has changed massively. The Google search results page over the last few years, because mobile is so key, the amount of ads that are at the top, then you get ads, then you get the organic listings. The organic stuff really is having a hard time of it. And I think the last stat I heard, which is a good few years old now, was that Google was earning £154,000 every single minute off AdWords. I think that was a 2015 stat. But they've got to earn their money from somewhere. They give us all this stuff for free. But as you say, it's not fair. There's, yes, if you were looking for workflow management, and you were doing a generic search, you get ads coming up, fine. You go back to the yellow pages, you'd have people paying for bigger size adverts than other people. When it comes down to brand names, it's different.
I mean, they should block that as well, because, he was saying that if you try to use Google in there, they won't let you. They put out a tweet that their Google ad was basecamp.com, we don't want to run this ad. They then said in the text, because Google won't let us, because Google are doing this, that. They said, no, that's a policy violation. You can't do that. He says, but that's what other people are doing to us. It is about Google. I think it's more about the competition. It's like, if your program, your software, your service, whatever it is, has merit, let it stand on that merit. Pull the customers away from Basecamp because you can do something better or simpler.
Aside from that, though, I think there is an element of people's knowledge. I suppose, like, Google is a word. You Google something.
Yeah.
Have people worked in organisations or been around, spoken to a friend, and they've said, "Oh yeah, you want to put that on Basecamp?" They're like, "All right, well, what's this?" And they're going to go and Google that. Yeah. What they're actually looking for is, what project management or workflow systems are there out there, but they're using Basecamp because that's what they've been told. That's it's a
maybe that's a victim of their own success that it's becoming much more of a generic term rather than specific software.
It's a tricky one with these, and again, when it comes to it, and you want to put a complaint in about trademark violation or trading standards or anything like that, there's not a great deal that can be done. Who can you talk to?
There's a little bit more recourse with Google sometimes if you can navigate through to find their phone number, but ultimately it's up to them. And I think that's really what we were talking about really for this podcast. It's like about ownership, making sure that you are in control of your assets wherever they are. So even on Google, if you're number one, you still can't control all the assets on there, because effectively you're still in someone else's playground. So you've got to make sure that you have diversified where you are, even from online and offline. As you say, you go networking. So then that should be part of the mix to bring them all in and not rely on just Google ads for your income stream or lead stream coming in, because something can change, and it's about controlling that.
Definitely, you're in control. You've got the ownership, and you're pulling the strings.
Where possible. I actually haven't asked this question to a lot of people for no particular reason, but I used to ask about what apps they use, what tools, because I'm really into apps, tools, and just doing things better, and I'm interested in how people do that. But I'm going to expand it out as well. If there are any interesting books, business or otherwise, or podcasts or films or music, anything really that you found interesting or useful in your day-to-day life recently that you'd like to share?
I got to admit, I'm a big fan of audiobooks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm spending time traveling up and down the M4 or the M5, seeing clients and stuff. I'll stick an audiobook on and learn and listen. I suppose the best one that I always refer back to is one called Rocket Fuel. You know, and it talks very much about, especially from a business point of view, it takes two people to control it. I first listened to it a good few years ago. You know, I had a business partner and things weren't working out too well. And Rocket Fuel, I listened to it and it made me think, you know what? I now understand where I've gone wrong, what needs to change. I always go back to and say to people, good. The most recent one I listened to is, what is it? They Ask, You Answer. Really about content generation. In short, guy in the States had a swimming pool business. It all started collapsing in the 2008 crisis. He went down the route of content marketing and put out their content about what kind of swimming pool do you need? What are you going to use it for? How do you clean it? How do you maintain it? What's the running costs? All that, like we were saying earlier about, you know, the architect putting the behind the scenes pictures out. You're generating content that's of interest to people, not just going, I sell swimming pools, come and buy them from me, you know, which is your website and your social media, just leaking out your message. You're generating useful content. Very, very worthwhile listening to. Yeah, no, sorry, They Ask, You Answer.
Okay.
That's the one. It's on my shelf over there.
Cool, that's brilliant. So I'll make sure they're linked. Where can we find you online? Where's the best place to get in touch?
LinkedIn, talk about social media and ownership and things like that, but LinkedIn, I'm on there, Copper Bay Digital as well.
And I'm at Ben Kinnaird on Twitter, or you can email me hello@ratherinventive.com. Or come along to one of our events. We're running lots of events this year, actually, lots of free ones mainly. Go to ratherinventive.com/events. If you want the show notes for this episode, go to ratherinventive.com/podcast. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to our video feed on YouTube, or if you just want to use audio only, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, they're the main ones. And if you want to support this podcast, just rate us on iTunes. If you find it enjoyable, just do give us a rating, share it with someone else. You can also check out our sponsor.